I asked Dave to go to general counsel to make sure we were doing this correctly. And the procedure that I'll follow is I'll call for nominations. Any nominations that are made, I'll ask for any more, and then we'll vote on the one or many that are on the floor. We'll proceed. There's no need for a second to the nomination. Are there any nominations for chair of the Hartland Selectboard? I'll nominate Phil Houghton. Okay. Are there any additional nominations for the chair of the Hartland Selectboard? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of Phil being chair, say aye. Aye. Any abstain or no? Abstain. You abstain? Okay.
Aye.
Okay. Ayes have it. Thank you. I'll proceed to co-chair. Are there any nominations for co-chair of the Hartland Select Board? I would go for Tom Kennedy.
Can we get you to clarify as vice chair?
He's vice chair, not coach.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Are there any additional nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Tom for vice chair, please say aye. Aye. Okay. Thank you. And then the one last position is clerk or secretary. I don't know what the official title is. Would like to entertain nominations for that secretary / clerk position. Joe?
I would nominate Jim if he would do it. He does a good job writing out all of those actions. I don't know if you're.
Thank you so much.
And we're lucky to have Cheyenne to do the day-to-day meeting. Okay, any other nominations? Did you accept?
Oh, that's,
Okay.
It does put you in the higher tax bracket.
that's I don't see any of it.
And Martin laughs in the background there, so. Okay, all in favor of Jim for position of secretary / clerk, say aye. Against, say no. Ayes have it. Congratulations, Jim. Okay. I'd like to just make a comment or two. I want to thank you for electing me chair for a second term. And I hope that I can work to gain everyone's respect and trust. Very often we use the phrase "for the good of the town," and I thought about that today. When I think of that phrase, I see an open discussion where we can actually hear each other's opinions. I think of the diversity of our town and aim to be inclusive with our decision making and how we go about that. And I also just think of my own values and moral compass and hope that that leads me to decent choices. And so the last little thank you I want to do, I want to pass along a number of thank yous that I received after the town meeting for our efforts to thank the various volunteers in town. So thank you for taking part in that. Okay, going on, we have a fairly straightforward meeting day and time. Dave, do you have any comments on the day and time?
Only that it is, and has been, since I've been around, the first and third Monday of the month, at 5:30 PM. And if it falls on a holiday, then the next day being a Tuesday at 5:30 is the default time.
We'll make a motion that we continue our date and time.
Let's do it. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Newspaper of record, I'm not sure if there's one or two. One.
Governors.
I'll make this motion that we continue with the Valley News as our.
Is there a second?
One second.
All in favor of the Valley News as being the newspaper of record, say aye. Aye. Moving on. The physical location for meeting notices, Dave will remind us of the 3 spots, I guess.
Mike's, North Hartland Post Office, and outside the town clerk's office.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we continue using Mike's, the North Hartland Post Office, and Damon Hall as our postal locations.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Is there a second?
One second.
All in favor of the location of the meeting notices, say aye. Aye. Good. Last year at this time, we introduced a document that all the rules of procedure for municipal boards, committees, and commissions for the town of Hartland specifically. We agreed last year that we would renew it each year as a way of kind of recognizing how we act as a board, how we make decisions. The meeting times are in here just as we just voted. Are there any perceived need to change these at this point?
I'd like to make a motion to make a change to agenda section item 1.
And what is action?
I'd like to add to the end of that if 2 or more members of the body request that an item be added to the agenda, it shall be added. And
So-
additional,
So you're saying add an additional sentence to
yes.
follow. Okay.
And then a second sentence that says the agenda for the next meeting shall be discussed and drafted at the end of each regular meeting. Additions can be made by the chair as needs arise. Which would, encourage us to talk about our next agenda at the end of this meeting.
I'm not following the second one. First off, is there a second to Jim's first motion?
Are they gonna be 2 separate motions, or is it one?
I'll defer to the board. If you feel there should be 2 motions, we'll do 2. If it can be done in one, we can do it in one.
How about we put it out as a motion, and if it needs to be amended, we can amend it.
Okay,
That's this.
okay. So help me with the second one.
Right, so
You're talking about item 3?
So the second half of that was that, that at the end of this meeting, we would discuss the items for our next meeting. You kind of just draft the key items for that next agenda. But that things will arise and the chair has the right to add anything that needs to be added in the interim.
How does that differ from what you are adding to item 1?
I think it gets us discussing the next agenda today, rather than kind of waiting until right on top of meeting day.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, it's not to be cast in stone, it's just a draft.
yeah, I can tell you from the Tuesday before meetings I had with Dave that, I mean, there's volatility to what items are there or not there. So, okay, so can you read this sentence again that we're adding to item 1?
Both parts? All right, so let me start it. If 2 more members of the body request that an item be added to the agenda, it shall be added. The agenda for the next meeting should be discussed and drafted at the end of each regular meeting. Additions can be made by the chair as needs arise.
Right. I'm really reluctant for the second part of that. The first part, I think, would be a good practice to try to add that, but I just,
I'll amend that motion to the first part.
okay.
So if 2 or more members request an agenda item, it'll be added. I'll second it.
Any discussion?
So my concern with that is it could be a topic that the residents may want to have a voice in, and it's not going to be warned, and so they're not going to be able to participate in the discussion.
Yeah.
Secondly, and I'm not in disagreement or agreeing with this, but I think we should be thinking about what we're about to do, and I'm not. So I guess my question would be, why don't we get this in writing for our next agenda packet and discuss it, but then have some time to think about it. I don't see the urgency as far as just hearing it verbally at this point in time.
Then
We will take it up next meeting.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, but let me just clarify that these additions would not be after a warrant agenda.
I think it
Right,
was
they would
for
have to
the
be
warrant
prior to a
agenda.
warrant agenda.
Right, right. And I do, full disclosure, when I took pretty much this document from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns.
Right.
So that verbiage, yeah, let's circle back if people are comfortable with that. So there's no action on that.
I guess this was not an action, but my action will be to provide this.
Okay. Okay.
So just for clarity, Jim, when you say 2 or more people, it would be for the next agenda? What's the difference between that and talking about the agenda at the end of the week?
So if something comes up between the end of this meeting and the time the agenda is warned for the next meeting, and 2 or more board members feel that it's an important topic that should be addressed, then it should be on the agenda.
One moment, did you say at the end of the meeting we would have that, end of this meeting we would have
I'm just
discussion?
thinking the window of opportunity, right, would be from the end of this meeting till the next agenda is warned.
So you're saying if 2 people write an email to me that I have to put something on the agenda?
Yeah, so if a topic comes up and 2 board members strongly support that it'll be on the agenda, it shall go on the agenda.
That's, I wasn't thinking that, I was thinking that during a meeting, at the end of the meeting, we would have this discussion about upcoming, which would give us a chance to have the full board be part of that discussion as opposed to two members.
Is there a risk to
I just wonder, like, I'm looking at today's agenda, under item 3, it says adjustments to the agenda. Why couldn't it be brought up then?
you want, if there's an item to be added, you want to have it on, so people know.
Okay, let's put it in writing. I want to do some research on this one as well. And it's not, I thought I heard one thing and then now I realized that it's something a little bit different and that's, but that's very, very different from doing actions in a meeting. Okay. Is there any additional discussion?
The last thing I say is it's perfectly okay to work on an agenda via email. When you look in the open meeting laws, that's an all, it's an okay use of the email outside of our one meeting.
Okay.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, as I said, I'll do my homework and give them yours on that one. Okay. Okay, so for now, tabling the rules and procedures for the town.
I know this is the board, I have just one question from the floor, if I might. If somebody feels there's something urgent, in the past, we've asked the town manager, should we continue to do that? I'm not saying that would be binding on the board, but if we feel there's something of some urgency, who should we address that request?
Yeah, I would think that would continue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think we're into the regular meeting at this point. We have minutes on February 21st and 27th. Can I ask for a motion to approve those?
I'll move that we adopt the minutes of February 21st and February 27th.
Is there a second?
I'm seconding.
Okay, any discussion? Cheyenne, under managers update. Second sentence. It's not the recreating center, it's the recreation center. Any additional observations, comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
Abstain.
Next item are the warrants for the accounts payable up through today, March 20th. We have a motion to accept them.
We accept the warrant up through March 20th.
Thank you. So second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Any discussion? Okay, under Fisher water reports, there's 2 entries for diesel emission fluid. And they look, I think they're different because I think that's the invoice number, but I just want to make sure they are.
255 gallon drums.
Okay. I was very happy to have received a paper copy of the town report. But I was a bit shocked at the cost of the printing. Neither here nor there.
Ordered a few more this year than last year, the live meeting. And it was decided to be a little bit more prepared to be less.
Any other questions? Warrants? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, are there any adjustments to the agenda? Moving on. Are there any public comments? Rob?
So I'm Rob André, and I'm here representing the Conservation Commission. Jay will also talk representing Planning Commission, and Sarah, the Energy Committee. We're here to ask the town to invest in a Zoom account that we can use for remote meetings. When the pandemic started 3 years ago, the town decided that Teams would be the platform we would use for remote meetings. And Teams was designed for organizations where there are a lot of people, all of whom are using Microsoft products. And it is well integrated with all of the other Microsoft programs. But that's not our situation. We have, we're a bunch of volunteers. Everybody's using their own computer. Some of it is Apple equipment, some of it is open source. And we're dealing with the public who also have a whole variety of things for computer hardware and software. And Teams, frankly, doesn't do very well in that situation. If you look at any of the recordings of the Conservation Commission over the past 3 years, the first 5 or 10 minutes of every meeting is sort of a clown show of people trying to get into Microsoft Teams. We have people who come in and they can't see anybody, but they can hear people, or they can see a few people, but they can't see everybody. We have people who have to uninstall and reinstall Teams before every meeting, sometimes more than once, just to get into the meeting. If I share my screen, if I'm hosting the meeting and I share my screen, when I come back out of the sharing, I can't see anybody anymore. It's just ridiculous. Teams is a terrible program for the kind of thing that we're doing. Zoom, on the other hand, seems to be designed for dealing across a number of platforms, and all of the people who regularly have trouble with Microsoft Teams use Zoom all the time in their work or in other situations, and nobody has expressed any difficulty with Zoom. I think that the kind of account that we would need to support all of the commissions and committees would probably cost around $150. So that's what we're looking for. And I'll turn it over to Jay and Sarah. Jay?
Likewise, we have the same complaints. It's a little different. Oh, by the way, I'm here at the direction of the Planning Commission to talk about a number of problems. I'll be brief. I'm not looking to discuss all the problems, but other than identify 3 that we would like to talk directly to the full select board about at some point in the future. When Dave told us that Microsoft Teams was it, we said, please don't do it, because we knew that, and that was 2 years ago. Our only out was for me to supply my personal Zoom account that I had to upgrade to Pro at $24 a month now for 2 years in order to be on Zoom. And it doesn't always work because I have to share my username and password. And when it tries to go, if I'm not in a meeting, and I'm very rarely not at a meeting, or if someone is at Damon Hall and other people are at home, then what happens is they sign on to a different computer, and then we're lost. It works and it doesn't work. It is just absolutely essential that you create a Zoom account for whatever number of commissions or committees want to use it. Probably on 4 occasions, we had problems such that we could not be on Zoom, and everybody says, well, where are you? And so it's really time to do this, to have the town create a Zoom account. That's item 1. The second item is that we are aware, not that we've seen it directly, that Dave has created a method for membership in different committees. We have not seen it, but we've heard enough, and that we would really like to have a full discussion about the contents of Dave's proposal before you adopt it. From what we've seen and what we've read, we think it's very counterproductive to insert a town manager in business that belongs to other organizations. Dave wants to send out an advertisement, that's fine, as long as the specific commission whose member is going to be considered, that information goes to the committee, not just to Dave for his approval. We find that objectionable, and again, the three boards would discuss this.
That last sentence?
I'm sorry?
Can you repeat that last sentence? What was your disapproval?
That we think it should be done differently, that the town manager shouldn't be the face. That is the welcome wagon to any new potential meeting. It should be the committee itself. What the planning commission has done since inception in the 1960s is that we find somebody, we advertise word of mouth, whatever it takes, because it's difficult to get members. And so we like to inform people that they should come to one of our meetings so they can see how we do business and we can see how they do business. That's very important, to have a forum that probably discourages people is not such a good idea, and that's one of our issues. Again, I don't want to design that tonight, but I want to bring it to your attention before you make or if you accept that procedure, that we have a discussion about it. That's the end of item number 2. Item number 3, I know that Phil has suggested, and Phil has met with Phil himself, with members of the 3 commissions. We feel as though, and tonight is a perfect example, that we should come and we should talk to all the select board to express what our problems and our concerns are on occasion, not every month, not every meeting, but when we find something that we need to talk about, it should be to all of you. Phil, as the chair, is good, but by himself, he's only Phil, because it takes 5 people to make decisions. And we want you to hear each of what our concerns are, nose to nose. And that's a third discussion we would like to have at some point in the future.
Let me just clarify that. Are you asking to come to the select board, which I certainly would welcome, with issues or with an update on what we are working on for the next 6 months?
Well,
help me understand a little bit.
The 3 commissions have their own particular projects that they work on. In the case of the planning commission, at this point in time, it's the town plan. And so in the past, we've always made it a point to go to the select board. If it's a 1-year process, we would come in maybe 4 times a year and say, this is what we're doing. Or if a representative like Jim or whoever was at our meeting, then it's more explanation. So we can tell you what we're cooking up and you're not surprised by it. And that's what we'd like to do. You don't need to know all your thoughts, everything that you're thinking about. It's only things that are specific to us.
Mhm.
And in this particular case, I've mentioned 3 tonight directly now. And those are the type of things we want to work on. But I know with the, for example, and I'm going to end it quickly because I don't want to get into a longer discussion. The planning commission spent 1.5 years working on a town plan, and we came to you numerous times. We handed it over, and then for 4 or 5 months, the whole effort was lost. Dave was working on it, and we never got a chance to come back. I'm sorry?
Other board members were working on it as well. Please, just a correction.
Okay, that's okay. But it would have been nice had we known that. We didn't know this, and that's the importance of communication. Let us know what you're doing, and we can maybe help you. Maybe we just keep our mouths shut. We're not pushing our ideas completely, but you get blindsided sometimes, and so the whole effort loses energy. And, you know, this is going to be another big project coming up for a couple of years now, or that will last a few years. And we really need to keep an open line of communication with all of you.
Oh, thank you, Jerry.
I just need to be added in as a presenter. Oh. Just so I can see the.
How do I do that? What's that?
It's on the,
But how do I? No, she's not over as a panelist.
I need to just be able to see the online attendance.
No, she's at the top.
Thank you.
Who's that? Sorry.
Good evening, Sarah Bruce, here representing the Energy Committee. And sort of in support of what Rob and Jay were speaking of, I just want everybody to recognize that the Energy Committee has been on Zoom from the beginning when we started with hybrid and moved to all virtual, and then back on all virtual right now. So 3.5, almost coming up on 3 years. We do use one member's personal Zoom account, and it is the standard account at the rate of $15 a month, for which that member gets no remuneration. The key point is that we've been doing this for almost 3 years and we don't have any problems. I don't think there's been ever a meeting, so you can figure out 30 plus meetings where we've had a problem. I also might note, quite aside from the Energy Committee, that since June or July 1st, 2020, I have Zoom hosted the online Aging in Hartland senior exercise class. And we haven't had a problem in coming up on 3 years in June. And what is in contrast, striking contrast in my mind, is the problems that not just I, but I and some other members of the ARPA committee had with MS Teams. And I'm also on the window dressers meetings, the Hartland and Hartford window dressers build, and they are hosted by the Hartford Energy Sustainability Coordinator. And of course, that's on Microsoft Teams, and repeatedly problems with that. So I simply fully support, and the Extractive Energy Committee fully supports Rob and Jay's proposal that the town open a Zoom account for the purpose of the use of the various committees and commissions, all of them. And there really shouldn't be any problems because I use an account that other people use. And you just have to not schedule your meeting when somebody else's regularly scheduled meeting is scheduled. Otherwise, you will bump the previous meeting off when you get on. So I think that's really it, but I also will say that the Energy Committee would fully support, and this is a comment, Phil, that you have specifically said publicly, the Energy Committee would fully support greater communication among the entities of the town, between the Energy Committee and the Select Board, between the Select Board and the Energy Committee. So we did have a report that we spent a good bit of time on and submitted it, but it has never been put on the agenda. So I think that's a problem, that we have to have better communication. So I would, again, also support Jay.
Thank you. Could I ask the three of you, I'm not familiar with any of the licensing associated with a Zoom account, but in your, what's a high number of attendees for one of your meetings?
by my changing it to pro and also paying more money for recording time, it brings you up that you can have more than 100 guests
Okay.
for approximately, with a little extended record time of $25 a month.
Okay.
The standard account, I believe, might be definitely to 50, possibly to 100. I do know a couple examples that I've been associated with the Zoom account where they did have to up it one over 100. But I also ran a Zoom thing for the garden club with the Aging on Hartland Zoom account, and we had 90 people registered. So I think the standard Zoom account has a pretty high capacity without the necessity, certainly high enough for probably any commission or committee meeting.
No, I think the Conservation Commission, the maximum we've ever had is probably 15 or 16.
Any commission, nowhere near as popular. I think if we make it to 8, we'd be doing well, or maybe 10. We were really on a roll. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you. To the three of you. Are there any other public comments?
Brian Straffolino, Town Clerk. On page 13 of the Town of Hartland Personnel Policy, under Section 30, Employee Discipline, it states, under the town's progressive discipline process, an employee may be subject to disciplinary action up to and including termination for violation of provisions of this personnel policy and or failure to maintain an acceptable level of performance. Most often, employee conduct that warrants discipline results from unexpected behavior, poor performance, or violation of the town's policies, practices, or procedures. The town reserves the right and its sole discretion to bypass progressive discipline and to take whatever action it deems necessary to address the issue at hand. This means that more or less severe discipline up to and including termination may be imposed in a given situation at the town's sole discretion. Employees are prohibited from engaging in conduct listed below and may receive discipline up to and including termination for doing so. On page 14 of the Town of Hartland Personnel Policy, the conduct list states, conducting oneself in a manner that is offensive, abusive, or contrary to reasonable community standards and expectations of public employees. Engaging in any form of harassment, including sexual harassment, fighting, engaging in horseplay, or acting in a manner which endangers the safety of oneself or others. This includes acts of violence as well as threats of violence. I have personally experienced and witnessed abusive, aggressive, disrespectful, threatening, violent, and vulgar behavior on multiple occasions over the course of my first term as town clerk. These behaviors are in violation of the Town of Hartland Personnel Policy. Many of these instances have been documented and shared with you, yet they continue. How is the select board going to proceed?
Thank you for your comments, Brian. As people know, we do not have those discussions in public meetings. Are there additional public comments? Dave?
Dave Singer. What is the enabling statute? Did you mention that or just your town personnel policy?
It's in our personnel policy.
Feedback's the worst.
Let's go into the next town. Okay, if there are no additional public comments, then let's move on to the Old business to fiscal year 23 budget update.
Good evening. Through the end of February, we are 67% of the way through the calendar year. We'll start with revenues. On the revenue side, if we take out the ARPA and the taxes that are paid for 100%, the general fund is actually at 71% of the revenues year to date. So the general fund is ahead on the revenues year to date. It also includes the rec, which is behind. So we have collected extra revenues going on. This school has submitted us the check for the 27.5, which will show on next month's. Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt, but on the revenues, you're 71% for the year, we're 67% for the year.
Correct.
Because most of that revenue is tax.
Yes.
Is the other 30% likely to come in, or are we gonna end up with a?
I feel the only line that's really gonna have a shortage is the fees. The recording vault fees, because there's not many sales going on, because there's nothing really for sale in the town. That's the only line I really see that's gonna probably not hit 100%.
But you think we're.
I feel
50 grand, 100 grand.
of the total revenues?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll be okay. We'll be over it. I believe we'll be fine.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Yep. Any other questions on revenue? On the expense side, as you know, we prepay quite a bit throughout the year. You'll notice that on page 3, the finance department is over, because the Limerick contract should be charged to finance. We never done it before. So if I took that out, we'd be at 66%. So we would be on track. The ordinance officer is low because we lost Sean, but now we have John doing it. So you'll notice that there'll be an uptick in that department over the next few months. As you work down through, you'll see that towards the end, the appropriations is close to 100%. We have one more check to cut. They don't like to get it until May. So that'll catch up at that point. The library is over budget. The library's actual number is 76%. At the end of February, I believe it's better in the month of March from what I saw, but some of that money they got paid for last year, so the expenses are in this fiscal year.
Martin, I remember last year there was a series of grants that were coming in.
Yes.
Similar this year.
I don't know what she's going to get. She's had a couple small ones come in, but she's already spent the money for them.
Mark, you said it was in last year, but that's in the.
So the revenues came in the last fiscal year, but the expenses are in this fiscal year. So that's why her fiscal year looks a little more skewed, because the expenses are in this fiscal year. You'll see that Three Corners project, I took the $1,062,000 out of the general fund. I made Fund 44 Three Corners project. So that's why that is sitting there. It was sitting in the general fund through the audit at the end of June of last year. We've moved it over because now we're starting to spend money for the Three Corner project. So
I missed that.
So
the bond,
the bond, yeah, the $1,062,000 was in the general fund at June 30th. I have moved it over to its own fund of number 44, because we're starting to spend money out of it. So if you take the $1,062,000 out and few of the prepays, the general fund is actually at 63%. So the general fund is holding just fine. The roadmap is working the way it's supposed to, and on the general fund side, we should end the year a couple percent under the 100%. We go to the highway department. The highway department is at 63%. If I take out the 81,000 overage of the paving, obviously at the end of the year, we can't do that. I did some forecasting out today, and I think the highway fund isn't going to end up as bad as we thought. It's still a little early to tell for sure, but I feel the highway fund's going to end up in a better place than it was than we thought it would end up. Any questions on the highway fund or the general fund?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. Dave, you have, I think there were 4 engineering proposals in the packets. You want to step through those?
Yep, so I did put those in your packets. Didn't have all the information out of it. I kind of edited it a little bit to give you the gist of what they responded to. This is for the Jenneville Road culvert, box culvert. Came in on March 3rd. Bill Barrows, Rita Cito, and myself have met and discussed the 4 proposals put forth. This is what we're looking to do here is to move forward with one of these proposals. In the meantime, we also are working on submitting for a structures grant to District 4 V-Trans to help offset the costs on this. Chris Bumps oversees District 4 is aware that this is going to come in. It's not slam dunk that we get it this year, but between this year and next year, looks pretty good that this would be included in that. So that's kind of what we're looking to move forward with.
I think there was also a program, I thought, for flood resiliency grants. Is that on the table?
So at the moment, no. If we go to the federal resiliency, we're looking at a 4 to 5 year project. And I can explain a little bit better because one of the proposals included a lot of the things that would need to be included in one of the federal projects, including like an archaeological study, and there's a deeper process. It's not overwhelming, but it does add to the costs that you can see between the 2 engineering proposals that was in your packet. We need to bring in basically a project and project manager. It's just kind of a drawn out process. Going this route will pay more out of pocket, possibly. I mean, again, going the federal route is going to drive up the cost and extend another 2 to 3 years. So that could potentially draw out our out of pocket expense as well. We're a little bit late getting this out, but the idea is to have this designed, have a structures grant in hand, and then we can go and have this done by next summer.
So you don't know the construction costs until.
Construction costs will come back. So, yep. So the answer is no, we won't know the construction costs until we put it out to bid. So we need to actually, what we would need to do is turn around and take this and then put it out to bid. Next, again, kind of like the 3 Corners intersection project, that's January, put that out to bid, and then you're gonna get the bids back when you got a pretty good idea.
The engineering study would give an estimate of.
It'll give an estimate of cost, yep.
Similar to what the 3 Corners engineer.
Yeah, correct.
So before it goes out to bid, you'll have a better idea on the grant money as well?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You may take that.
350 to 400. Norwich just did a cover exactly like this. Dimension wise, there's a little bit deeper, excavation wise, 350. 350,000.
David, I don't remember which of the proposals, if not more than one, talked about the stress on Wallbrook made by Katie Brook. Are we comfortable that all of the proposals understand about the possibility of the, or the influence of one brook on the other?
I am confident in all 4 engineering firms to put something together. Everett Hammond is on tonight's meeting. He was the one that It was his proposal that kind of put that out there, specifically, but, the engineer is gonna end up working with Scott Jensen, who's the river engineer, for the state of Vermont. So he's going to double check the preliminary design, and then, that ultimately the final design will be based upon, the H&H study, the hydrology study that's been put forth has already kind of identified certain things. Each of the proposals, including, Everett's, kind of raises a few things that people need to be aware of, but through the process, Everett and including the other three, I have confidence that any one of these guys would take that into consideration. So the three of us met, and we did go through, there is a matrix, it was in the RFPs, kind of outlined the RFP, it's kind of a straightforward, we did borrow this from some of the federal projects that people do, kind of straightforward in the RFP. And we ranked them on 6 different things. We give them a ranking of 1 to 5, and certain things are weighted in a different way. At the end of the day, the choice of the 3 together was Otter Creek Engineering. Otter Creek Engineering did have the lowest bid. However, I will give an asterisk to that. Everett Hammond's, based upon what you read, Phil, he did have borings included in his proposal. Otter Creek does, the other 3 did not have borings included, so you know that it's easily it's about another 5,000. So to Everett's credit, he did have the borings, but overall, Otter Creek, there is some familiarity with Otter Creek. They did do the Base Hill culvert for us. We did speak quite a bit between Everett's and Otter Creeks. They were similar in pricing and similar in simplicity, which is really what we were looking for when we put this RFP out, because we're really not looking for that federal project.
That's good for Base Hill, was on a box culvert.
It is, yeah, we did that one 3 years ago, maybe. That one was just done recently. As you see on the VHB proposal, that's kind of a prime example of some differential here. They do have, their overhead is more than most. However, their proposal was also much more complex. And when we put this RFP together, we did work with District 4 V-Trans on putting this proposal together. And going this route, with not going with that mitigation grant, Jim, in the structures grant, you kind of strip away that federal funding, that the federal red tape, so to speak. So when we put this together, both Otter Creek and Everett had a much simpler proposal, and basically the cost of it ended up being much simpler as well. Pathways kind of fell in between the two. They had kind of hours that were between BHB and Otter Creek and Everett. But at the end of the day, Otter Creek was the decision between the 3.
So just going back to, and I'm sure others have questions, but are we saying the Otter Creek proposal would go up by maybe $4,000 to $6,000 once they do the borings?
So none of the other 3, and I give Everett credit on this. So the other 3 didn't put the borings in. We didn't ask them to put the borings in. And you know, if you're going to ask the engineering company if you need borings, the answer is probably not. But you know, hey, if we hit ledge, you know, it's gonna stink. So
Or a sinkhole,
we will probably there will be a pre-construction meeting, and it'll be on site. We'll probably discuss that. I expect Scott Jensen and Chris Bumps to be there. We can have that discussion. You know, you can kind of look at it, but, you know, at the end of the day, you just don't really know, unless you do some boring. So, I would suspect that we may end up going that route.
Okay. Any questions?
So I just like to see it come before I die.
Hey, took a long time to get cow over there, so.
What's the timeline?
So we would like to have, the design work and permitting done, at the end of July. And then be ready to go to bid, next year at this, basically like January, go out to bid in. So the end of next summer would be ideal. We'll probably give you contractor's choice as to when exactly they do it. But, that's the plan.
Any thoughts, questions? Okay.
No, I'm familiar with all of these and they're all reputable engineering firms.
Yeah.
Yeah, my one question is, we don't need the boring, is whatever it reduce is cost?
He may, I would ask. We can take it off.
You know, just leave the borings as a matter of course, or is this? I know him, he's very, very thorough.
I think it's gonna really determine, you know, the consensus between Scott and Chris. You know, particularly if Chris's funding is involved, and the engineer on site. We'll probably have that joint discussion and see where we go.
Okay. Jim, any additional questions? I guess I'm looking for a motion to accept Otter Creek Engineering to proceed with a proposal for the Jenneville Road culvert.
Why would we select Otter Creek if they're only, I think memory serves right, about $1,000 apart from Everett's and they're not including the boring.
Because the three of us felt as though, we just felt as though we felt more comfortable with Otter Creek. Yeah.
A second. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of moving forward with Otter Creek, say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
And since he's on the line here, I can also expand, you know, just to give everybody an understanding as to the differences between the two. And this is by no means, Tom, as you said, you know, Everett, by all means, you know, appears to be a good engineer. I think that the additional tipping scales was that Otter Creek does have some additional personnel that they can pull in their backlog of past projects also. You know, these are a couple of things that are on the matrix that kind of factor into it. So it just kind of helped push that over the edge, just to be transparent, and let everybody understand what the differences were here.
Yeah, I'm familiar with their work in another life. Okay, thank you, Dave. Moving on to the architectural proposal for both the rec center and Damon Hall. I think we all have that scope of services document. Do you want to make some comments, opening comments?
Yeah, so I have signed this with John, and we have moved forward. There was some timing issues here to make sure that we get an architect online. He was able to get the surveyors and the civil engineer online as well. This is coincides with kind of a directive from last July to go ahead and move forward and present a study for us and our capabilities and what exactly we've got over at the rec center. I've had some updates on this. Since that time, we had the RFQ came back, I had the visit, kind of give you an update on the visit. The scope is narrow scope, it covers a lot of the basic necessities and most everything that was in the engineering assessment for 4x4 engineering that we had done back in 2017. Jim, you may remember we kind of shared that back in July as to kind of an impetus as to some of the things that are wrong here with the buildings. There was and I did include this in your packet, kind of behind this, you know, there's a little bit of a discussion with the architect, and I do have a gentleman, as you may recall, providing assistance on this with the RFQ and kind of the project direction itself. Isaac Wagner, who has experience with these projects and the grants. And both of them basically said, sure, if, you know, something like the resilience, you know, money comes out, say in 2024, you know, all this money kind of continues to fall from the sky. They can expand the scope, but we really don't know what's in that language at this point. At least we don't. Still to come, I guess, but we can expand the scope if we know further information at that point. But this was to kind of get us going with the bare, not necessarily the bare, but really the basics of what needs to be done, and really get an idea as to what that elevator shaft means for us over there, whether it can be reused, whether it can't be reused. And it gives us the cost estimates to kind of go from there.
Yeah, I do appreciate that there was a consideration for the resiliency program, even though we don't know the details, but that seems like a decent strategy to say, for the architect to say, yes, I can accommodate that once we know more. Hopefully right now, here's what we're doing. There's certain timelines I looked at today with the documents. So I'm going to see talking about it a little bit. Where they're from.
It kind of depends on getting the civil engineer up and running. But I think it was within the next couple of months to have a deliverable on this.
Okay.
There is some survey work that needs to be done. Just kind of outline that, particularly on this side of this building. It's really pretty close to, I forget the person that used to live there, Martin, next door.
Charlie Hall.
Charlie Hall's place. We got a couple things going on there. We got a couple culverts, et cetera. We got a direct intake back here. So we need to kind of do some survey work. We have some scheduled for the rec center. There is an old survey from 1972. But we'll see what that brings, whether we can use it or not.
Okay. I don't have a motion yet, but other discussion questions.
Do we need a motion? This is already, this is my contract. This is just an update.
Just a motion to.
Basically keeping you guys, keeping the train moving and just making sure that we're.
Yeah, which reduced or
We
just done.
Yeah, but I didn't want a $30,000 expense to land in the warrants and not have anybody say, what's going on here.
Okay, so then I will ask for a motion to go forward with the.
Yes, I don't think we need a motion. I think we keep going forward.
I'm going forward with it. Unless someone stood up and said, you were so far out of line, I thought you were gonna do the library, not the rec center or something like that. Then,
Okay.
But I think we've been trying to stay in with the original motion and just keep everybody updated and kind of go from there.
Okay, any questions on the scope of services document that we're looking at? No. Okay. You good? Okay, the next agenda item is from a company called First Light, it has to do with the intersection project.
Yeah, so this one actually is also somewhat informational. We're pretty well committed to this contract. When we went out to bid with Knott's and proceeded with Knott's, kind of pushed the project forward as part of that estimate that everybody saw released back in December. On the estimate, it had First Light and a GMP. We've already signed a GMP contract. GMP contract was for about 81,000. The First Light estimate was actually around 44. The latest estimate based upon this contract is for 21. So they've come down a bit from their estimate. On what I've sent to you, there is some language underlined here that basically I'm asking to be inserted as far as having a timeline that they need to abide by. We all kind of know how cable companies aren't the quickest to detach their utilities from the poles. Interestingly enough, they haven't signed this yet, but I believe they're probably waiting for the pre-construction meeting to get a better idea of the timeline. But I also didn't want a $21,000 bill coming in and everybody's like, what's this? This will need to be signed between now and May for the services to have them remove their cables. Just kind of putting this in here, letting you know that it's out there, it exists. We'll need to sign it upcoming. VTEL doesn't have one or has not submitted one, but they have indicated that they're ready to do the work.
But similar to what we did for Green Mountain Power, I believe, we would need to have a vote authorized that this contract be signed and moved forward.
It is up to you. I've got authority to move forward with this and sign it. If you want to tell me to go ahead and sign it now, that's fine. It can always come back as a different amount from 21.3.
So I just want to make sure we're doing things consistently if we need to.
Yeah.
So Green Mountain Power, I think we made a motion to approve it, right? Did we? My memory is.
I don't remember.
We either made the motion or it was a similar thing. If it puts you at ease, you can say, you know, we approve this.
I think it should just be consistent. If we did it for one, we should just authorize each piece as it comes along. Right? That's my suggestion.
I don't know if I have an opinion on it.
Okay, go ahead, Ken.
You said you were going to make edits to this contract. So we're not actually approving.
So the proposed language is there.
You said it's the language that's underlined.
That's what that we have proposed back to them. They have not accepted that language yet. You can always say proving on a contract with First Light for 21,300. You know, there's always a possibility that may fluctuate for some reason. Any one of the above, I'm comfortable.
Why don't we just approve the final when it's ready?
Was that?
Why don't we just approve the final when it's ready?
Yeah. Dave, we're looking at First Light, we're talking about Green Mountain Power. There are other carriers.
Yeah.
Is each one going to run their own conduit, or do these companies play together and share conduits, or? Okay.
They don't play well together at all, actually.
Then we should wait until we have the package to see if First Light is the same as Comcast.
So I can tell you that Green Mountain Power was not anywhere near the same as this.
Right.
So you're not gonna get similar contracts.
So Green Mountain Power is a different ballgame than running fiber. I mean, the expenses here are in the splicing and
Do you know who else is on the pole? Is it just detail or is there somebody else besides that?
So they're all on the same pole. They're gonna come off the pole and end up in their own snug conduit.
But I mean, besides First Light, Green Mountain Power, detail is on.
Detail, and there's one other one, I can't remember. One of them is already underground underneath the sidewalk. My point here would be it's kind of a moot point because we need to sign the contract.
okay.
So
We're pretty far down this.
Yeah,
We're pretty far down this road. Yeah,
I'm not trying to sort of.
I kind of brought it to you as an informational piece.
Yeah, so we'll
I
stay.
think you had permission to sign.
I can,
Right.
this is.
I mean, that's the question. Should we authorize each one as it sounds or, yeah, do we just do?
Just do a
We
blank.
authorize knots, we authorize green power, right? Should we authorize these as well? Yeah.
Looking at this language, First Light is not going to accept it. If I was First Light. Given that there's so many other partners out there, they're not gonna. So I think you're gonna have some time negotiating. with them.
Yeah, but here's,
They're gonna probably want dates or something, or,
they hear me well.
you know,
This will be kind of an ongoing thing, but at the end of the day, from the town's perspective, and that's our main interest here, is that when the project ends, we don't want it to be like a whole nother year, and we're still.
no, I get it, I get it, you know.
So, there is, these guys have known for 3 years that this is coming down the pipe. But nevertheless, I haven't heard back.
Right.
So,
This has scared me, and any cable company does.
Is Comcast in the mix?
they may be the ones underneath the
No, that's
sidewalk. One of them's buried already, it may be Comcast, I'm forgetting one. Xfinity Comcast is the same.
So am I hearing that we will wait until you actually have a contract that is agreed to?
My recommendation to you is, once it comes in, we sign the damn thing as soon as possible.
Sure.
So I would be, because otherwise they're gonna come right back with the, oh, well, I didn't have enough time to order the stuff.
Sure.
So I wouldn't wait. This is all part of the project that's been approved, accepted, packaged, and,
Right.
and
Yeah, so
we're moving off.
often between we really don't need to do anything if we have a general going forward. So.
I think we've already approved the project, so I don't see why but that's just,
I will continue to bring it to you and keep you updated as to where we land with this. To Tom's point, they are, all four of these guys are concerned as to getting them to do what they need to do.
Doing it together.
Yeah, no, we all have side decks over the Jenneville Road. Poles, once all the new power is in, whether the old poles be removed or not.
They all act the same, but they don't like, they're like.
Okay, so we're ready to move on to the certificate of compliance for town roads and bridge standards and network inventory.
So this is, you signed this back in 2019, I believe. I put that in your packet. That's when they updated the latest standards. We signed on to that. This is essentially a refresher to refresh the board that we have signed on to the 2019 road and bridge standards. It's also, I think, the story I heard is that this is very much FEMA related. So FEMA looks for this whenever there's damage done to an asset. They look to make sure that we have our standards in place, because then we can say, well, we need to, like with the Base Hill culvert, we were able to bring that actually up to a greater standard than it was, because we were abiding essentially by the state standards. However, what happens is that towns always like lose the original 2019 one, whether it's just can't find it in the town manager's records or whatever. So they've come up with, if you sign a refresher every year, it stays fresher in your filing cabinet. So if you have a FEMA event, you can pull it out and say, yes, we would by the state standards.
Any changes between 2019 and?
There's no changes. This is basically stating that you are aware and abiding by the 2019 standards. So there's been no change
So
since
you have
then.
a motion to accept this?
Yeah.
And that's all?
And this one, I very much want you guys to sign, so.
Yeah, and we do, this also coincides with the committee work that the roads committee did, which laid out the groundwork for additional funding for bridges and paving and hard path.
So we'll make a motion that we accept and sign the town road and bridges standard as updated.
A second.
Do we need to include the?
You have a different date of adoption or something,
Yeah,
you gonna change that or amend it?
Well, do you have a copy for us now? Okay.
That is what I am looking for. I thought I had one, give me a moment. I do have one, but it's got the 6-4, but I don't think the state will mind if I send it in that way. You can sign this one.
I mean, if you need to get a more current, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was your question?
If you need to get a more current, we can do it next meeting.
A more current,
Yeah, I mean, if there's a updated form.
I mean, this has a July 15th date up at the top.
Yeah, that's how the original was adopted. July 15th, 2019.
yeah, correct. That's based upon the prior, that's when you adopted the other one, so I just haven't written it as the 19. So it was July 15, 2019, so certify that we have reviewed, understand, and comply with the town road and bridge standards passed and adopted by the select board of village of trustees on July 15, 2019. What is underneath is the one that was signed on July 15, 2019. So the date on that is correct. You have a blank page to sign, and with today's date, to do that. And I'll give you this one.
Okay.
How easy to navigate through a 100-page select-board.
You know, I just, the last 2 meetings were like really light on you guys, so we said, hey, we gotta.
Make up for lost time.
We need to type that in there.
Signatures listed at the top. I think I saw this in the Declaration of Independence.
Not that. I was trying to actually see what signature he was using today.
Right, I use my good one.
David, do you want to take this?
Okay, moving on to the annual financial plan for town highways.
So this is the same kind of administrative work. needs to be submitted to, V-Trans, kind of do this all at once. We'll go back with the network inventory. So all we're really looking for, here is, an understanding of our highway budget. It does not include money to reserve accounts, so I have taken out, the amount that we send to the highway, fund. So the revenues and expenses don't match up completely to fiscal year 24 budget. Because I've taken that out. Otherwise, what you're showing here is that we spend more than $300 per mile, I think it is, and we do indeed do that. And again, they utilize this if there is an emergency. So for instance, if a bridge were to go out or a road were to wash out, the damage needs to be a certain percentage of what your budget is. And if it is, then they'll cover part of the cost of an emergency work done. Yeah.
Hopefully easy question. So like Hartland, Brownsville, Route, Queechee Road is a class 2. Yes.
Isn't class 2 the state one?
State highway is 5 and 12. I believe they're 2. Yep.
Are there any, there's no mileage changes from the last one? Hopefully.
We signed that one back in January, February. That was the second meeting in January, I think we signed.
You don't have to have on class 4.
No. The amount that they gave us for class 2 and 3 roads is more than we were expecting. Which they've done now for 2-3 years in a row, since that ARPA money has been kind of floating, or the structures money's been floating around. So it did help us compared to what was budgeted. So that's a benefit. But.
So is that the 38 or the 31 that the state's giving us?
So what the state is giving us is the $71,371.05 plus the $97,360.34 is what they give us in basically highway A1. The 31,000 is a grants and aid grant for the ditching, which is up about 15,000 over last year. I think we had like 17,500 last year.
Yeah, I was going to ask for that.
There's a motion that we accept and sign the annual financial plan for town highways.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any nays or abstaining? Unanimous.
Yes, carries.
Before we get started, we have in our packets, and we've been getting emails from the VLCT on the new website. Their emails go into a separate stack in my inbox, and I always don't see them because most of the time it's not something I worry about. What is our individual responsibility versus the town updating stuff.
So you skipped a couple of agenda items here, but we could skip to correspondence. Great.
Well, I want to, is this correspondence?
It is essentially, so that was,
Let's hold off on it, because it was floating in the
That's okay.
packet, and I didn't know quite how to treat it.
it was of utmost importance that I felt as though you should read first thing.
Thank you.
But in your correspondence part, there's like an identical piece of
Okay,
information, and
forgive me for getting off track. Let's go on to the town manager.
we can tackle them.
Yeah, we did that.
Three Corners, at this point, pretty well, aware we move forward with Knott's excavation. We're looking forward to a pre-construction meeting, next week. I'm starting to get my weeks mixed up here. One of the interesting conversations I think that will be had will be with the utility companies and making sure that they are on the same page and hearing what concerns that they have and the timelines and how difficult this may be for them. But hopefully we can get through that and get everybody on board. I know GMP, one of the biggest player, is ready to go, and they are in active communication, which is good. The past storm was a difficult one. The one that we had last Tuesday and Wednesday, cleanup into Thursday. It was a wet storm. It was inconsistent as how it came. I know that around commuting time on Tuesday evening, I think that the roads were not plowed as much as some people would have preferred. At the end of the day, that's a call that the highway foreman makes. When one person makes the call, sometimes we get it right and sometimes we don't. When we don't, obviously, there's a big bright spotlight on that. It does happen. Although they were out first thing in the morning, I believe a little bit after midnight on Thursday. So by commuting time the next morning, it should have been better. At least most roads, we didn't get to them all.
So they went back, did they go back out after midnight on Tuesday?
Not on Tuesday. So Tuesday, they were done late afternoon and went back out early
Wednesday.
Thursday morning, Wednesday, correct. Which meant to make some sense, to pull them back at like 7 o'clock. They would have been done around midnight, maybe a little bit after that. At some point they need to sleep, and then you've got commuting the next morning for the bus routes, et cetera. So decision ultimately was made to just go the next morning and clear the roads. It was difficult to clear. Again, it was inconsistent, just created some problems for us. There has been some truck problems, some maintenance issues. The one time has been out with the transmission. That's going to be, it's been out for about 2 weeks now. It's going to be about another 2 more weeks before it gets looked at. So we are getting through with that.
The towing expenses that were in the warrants, were they for more than one truck, or are they just for this one?
Yeah, you had a big truck go out.
They were for 3 different trucks. One was for the 1 ton. Yeah. One was for the 1 ton. One was guy got stuck, and another one was because it died briefly. We got two of them, but the 1 ton is out for a bit. Buildings and grounds, there was a energy audit done to the North Hartland School. I have not talked to the gentleman that did it, Ruder. I was out that day on that Friday when he came. I do know that it was done, and I would expect a report at some point with Bob. We spoke about John Sicaccio, the architect. Looking forward to moving forward with that. Commissions and committees, we heard from them a little bit earlier. Those did get posted. They do get posted by the town. We have heard back from, we've got 2 responses on the Conservation Commission. We have 2 on the Rec Committee, and we have 1 on the Connecticut River Joint Commissions. I did need to touch base with Jason on exactly how that commission works, but going to be looking hopefully at April to bring at least the Rec and the joint commissions in for that. It'll be a little bit longer on the Conservation Commission before they come in. That's kind of it. Tom, you're new a little bit, but each of my updates, I try to leave the miscellaneous at the bottom. Consistent, each meeting is what I'm working on, kind of immediate, midterm, and kind of long-term things that are in front of me. And right now, the 3 Corners intersection, obviously, and ARPA-related projects are pretty well front and foremost.
Can I rewind the clock just a bit and ask a question? If, if we have trucks that go out of service, or we get clobbered with an unusual storm, is there any contractors that we can sub out to backstop the town for us?
We don't. We had that discussion in detail during the pandemic and what we would do if we lost a couple guys due to sickness. We usually are able to kind of get through the storm by the time you rally a contractor, get them outfitted and kind of up and running. We mostly rectified it. There was one point, I think 2 years ago, I think we had the grader out there doing the Densmore Hill side of things. Took us a little bit longer, but we generally get through it and make up for it. Right now, we're using buildings and grounds pickup truck and replacement of the 1-ton. It seems to be working, but we're also kind of coming off of this. Kind of a quick answer for you.
Any other questions for Dave on correspondence? Or, I'm sorry, on the announcements before we go to correspondence? I'm assuming we'll do correspondence before Merritt comes.
Support that.
So the answer, Phil, is I don't know. They sent something out March 8th. Brian filled it out and had all your information that they asked for. It had everybody else's information that they were asking for. I had a question on it. I called and they were in a little bit of an influx because they're really not entirely sure how this is going to come together entirely either. So the way I understand it is they're putting it together and we'll know future steps, what he means.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm assuming that you're going to be able to access and you can get it, have a password and use your username, et cetera.
I just don't want to miss all the excitement.
I do want to take a moment just to kind of put it out there that, there's considerable discussion about Zoom and Teams. This has been a little bit on the back burner, and I think that the commissions and committees are going to need to kind of address this at some point. So each of the commissions and committees have a Microsoft 365 account, much like you guys do. It has an email address and means of communication, along with a Teams license that we pay for. It's intertwined with our system. Our employees use Microsoft. We have a Microsoft system here, and we all use Teams. I use Teams at home on my Mac, works fine. the end of the day, some of the things that we will need to work on, just to push back a little bit, is the use of town emails and use of this system, which we're paying for, and really doesn't get used. So, much like Jim, why you wanted an email originally, I think, you recently started using it, the other two really don't. We kind of need to get synchronized with the system and kind of get people using it more than they should. It's possible that this Zoom system may be available in the near future, but something I need to work with Chico going forward.
Why don't we just, I'd like to make a motion that we put the Zoom discussion on our next agenda.
Yeah, I already have it, I'm just gonna start doing some.
Yeah, I think we ought to ease their way if there's
Yeah,
the ability to do that.
yeah, I think Jim can appreciate this, but I've been around enough operating system changes and enough software that, and, you know, you hear complaints, but I've heard enough complaints about Teams over time that, and I don't know how Zoom did it, but it's been pretty seamless every time I've used Zoom. Yes, sometimes the video's not working, but that's my own problem of this or that. So
So we'll cover that on a future agenda.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll get some costs associated with it.
I'd like to make one other suggestion for a future, I lost my words, future agenda item. I think in response to employee feedback today, we ought to have a executive session according to one VSA 317.
I was hoping we could actually have 2 executive sessions tonight.
If we can do that without warning it, then that's fine with me.
Because we're warned in executives.
No,
we do.
I'd like to go with the second one would be,
Discuss the feedback we heard tonight.
realize that, just to, if I could pipe up just a little bit.
Well,
that-
first, do we want to cover this now or do we want to cover it?
I'd be more than glad to cover it now, because the employee evaluation, if the employee chooses to, can be open to the public. So one thing I'd like to say is, never once has the board heard from me on any of this.
So I don't,
Yeah. please.
I don't think. I think what was stated today was troubling to me, and I don't think that necessarily precluded you from being in the executive session. We obviously need to hear all sides of it, but I found it to be troubling as far as, and I have no idea what's going on, but, you know. So, the other thing in being a newbie here is, so we had 3 different groups talk about wanting to make presentations to the board. How does that work here?
We haven't really had a formal relationship. Yeah, I think if the commission, like, when planning wanted to deliver the plan, town plan, they came. When Rod delivered his changes for class 4 in legal trail use, he came. But we haven't had a regular kind of collaborative meeting. So I mean, again, like, this can be a future agenda item, but I would strongly support that we do a biannual meeting with each commission chair. For, basically for updates, what are you working on? How can we help you? What do we need to know?
Okay.
Yeah, and the other piece that was brought up, which I made notes this morning, not on the application process. I think we've approved that and moving along with that, but the next steps are, we had an awkward period with either planning or conservation commission members of the last time where we were asking for recommendations in the public and then voting. So I'd like to sort of just clarify that flow, so we do it in a respectful way for the people that are vying to be on the commissions. So I just would like to sort of go through that to make sure.
So we'll talk through the process.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
So does that leave us at the Merritt Campbell?
I believe it does, yeah, I was just double checking.
Just in the future, public meeting law, we have to state the reason why we go to executive session.
Yeah.
Or else you're in violation of public meetings law.
So
So we've done some research on this one, because we
Here
did,
they said, but usually you state that you're going to executive.
Yeah.
session.
yes,
So
And you're
I,
not, we don't state that.
in the agenda,
Well, you said it's something about the Campbell Merritt Fund.
does it not say?
No, but Tom, I believe in this case, if you're gonna intrude upon some personal information that.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing, usually it is, yes.
So we have a process embedded with the LC to get us from here to executive session to cover Merritt Campbell. Like, I'm going to
Okay, so it'd be nice to have that, right?
I got it.
New ordinance.
So I'm going to have to do it, because we haven't done this for a while. But, you know, maybe first a question, do we have documentation or information that might expose a person's financial situation or cause that person embarrassment or provide information that would otherwise be exempt from the public record? So that's a question. Will
You want the actual, yes, that is correct. I have,
that pursuant to one VSA 317 C7, that type of documentation would not be available for public inspection. So I make a motion that since we have, that we do have that information, it's not available for public inspection. Does anyone second that motion?
is there a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, you guys are done.
So since we have information that's not public information, I make a motion pursuant to one VSA 313 A6 that we move to executive session to discuss this Merritt Campbell request.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. I think we're set. Okay, let's take a 2-minute break while these guys break down.